All right, board members, would you please join me, let's see, in first a conversation about, yeah, I did, where is that on the, I don't see it on the agenda, I was getting ready to, but so.
We can do it.
Oh, we can? Okay. So I welcome Mr. Gilbert, so that's very good. I thank you for joining us as well. So we'll go ahead and start with comments on item number 1.02 and just say welcome everyone. It's exciting to see everyone. It feels like we are well in the fall semester and now such important work at hand as the semester kicks off well underway. So with some of the work that I know Dr. Mack is going to speak on, I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Hoffmeister, board members. Good morning, and thank you for being here. I do have a few areas that I want to cover in the comments. The first thing that I would like to do is recognize a couple of our superintendents from the technology centers that are here. Julie McCormick from Gordon Cooper Technology Center and Michael Eubanks from Mid-America Technology Center. One of the requirements in being a new superintendent is their opportunity to come to a state board meeting. So they are here participating and meeting that requirement to be a new superintendent. So thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it.
It's great, and thank you for your leadership.
Yeah.
Stepping up.
I guess congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
And so we will have, we have some other new superintendents that will be joining us throughout the year, but Mike and Julie were able to be here today. A few other announcements that I have, virtual OEIP, we are continuing that, and on October 27th, the theme of that will be focused on the automotive industry, and so we will be continuing that. We have a great panel conversation. Fowler Auto Groups currently is a part of that conversation, so we're looking to connect our teachers and students with that virtual OEIP. We were also notified that it is time for our standard 2-year cycle operational audit for the state auditor's office, so we have submitted all of our documentation that's requested. We did, as we had discussed at a previous meeting, we just finished our P-card audit conversation that we went through, and so we do, this is our 2-year cycle, and so we will complete that information and submit that to the auditor's office.
Is that just on the whole budget or spending?
Yes, and it's the same outline that they have for each agency, and so there's a 2-year cycle that we go through, and this is our 2-year cycle. So we will, as they outline what the audit is and those particular things, our format for that is bring that to, they come and present to the board when they complete that and go through that process. So we have a few professional development items that getting back into offering our professional development virtually and in person. We have a combination of various ones. We do have CareerTech Women in Leadership with 29 participants that will kick off the first of the year, as well as our Tech Sense, which is specific to individuals learning about the Technology Center finance piece. And we currently have 23 participants in that. We also will, currently slated for December the 13th, Becky is working on state staff. Every 6 months, we have our all-state staff meeting, and so that will be already talking about December and getting that information put together. Another professional development opportunity that we have and have taken for our managers group is our managers group is doing a book study on Hope Rising, and so we are excited to go through that as a management group, and so we are in the middle. We just finished chapter 6, and so we will hopefully complete that by the first of the year, and then we'll go into some of those other book studies. In your packet, you will see a final copy of the business plan, which you approved last board meeting, so we provided you a final copy of that without draft across that, so that you have it. It is also on the website as well. As we move into some items for in the next couple of weeks, we do have the Aerospace Forum at the end of next week. we have multiple individuals from CareerTech who will engage in that conversation in our partnership with ACES, talk about the videos on aerospace that Russell and Eddie have been very actively engaged in and move that piece forward, as well as the Governor's Workforce Council for Economic Development is that first week of November. This year, we're doing an all-day meeting, and so that will be on November the 2nd. And then there's continued interim studies, covering various areas, the ARPA funds or the federal dollar amount. Canadian Valley Francis Health did a great job presenting on that. At the interim study on specific information, distance education, we had some agency staff, Chrissy Miller and Letha Botter, present information for that panel on the film workforce. Corey Gray and Sean Nord presented on that piece. And then one specific to workforce, and there were 4 to 5 technology centers that presented various programs that they have, as well as Eddie presented on aerospace components and what we get to do specific to military. And that particular thing, because Eddie does serve on the Strategic Military Commission, and so he was able to share those pieces. We have one coming up next week, individuals with disabilities obtaining technical certification and getting into employment. So we have been asked by the Department of Mobility Services to be a part of that conversation with them. There is one, we've been asked for information for one around our skill centers and criminal justice piece. So we're getting details for them on that, as well as the last one that we have coming up we were notified on this week is specific to anti-hunger and working how food resources and how those are available, and asking us information, because we do have one technology center that partners specifically with a food bank on their active facility, Western Technology Center. And so I'm going to see what information we can provide for them as well. Justin has worked with the Office of Juvenile Affairs to work to expand our program, and hopefully hopefully in January, we'll be able to start a program at Tecumseh at their facility that they have there, the brand new facility. So we're excited to be invited to do that. And then we also are exploring programs with a local industry at Bonita as well. And I've been asked to a meeting the first week in November to have that conversation. It would be from the community correction space that they're in Bonita. So a lot of things have been happening, and a lot of conversation around workforce and being invited to the table to have those conversations. So we're trying to help make those connections. Next, I mentioned our skill centers. As we talked about in July, it is our 50th year for the skill centers. In 1971, legislation was passed that allowed for Oklahoma CareerTech to be a part and provide that training for skill centers. So we have received, Russell picked it up yesterday, we have received a proclamation from the governor for Skill Centers Month will be in November. So this month we're going to celebrate Construction Month, and then next month we will have that proclamation for our skill centers to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the work that we've been able to do in the skill centers. The last 2 items that I have is we originally, when the federal vaccination mandate was mentioned, all of our programs that are grants, that does not apply to. So for our Perkins Adult Basic Education, what we do with TANF and those particular things, and we originally had been under the impression what we get to do with procurement technical assistance, previously known as OBAN, that would be considered a grant. And we received notification that it was going to be considered a contract. So Carter Merkel, who works very closely with that group, has worked with them, and we've had multiple conversations over the last 2 weeks, and we did receive notice on Tuesday that it will be considered a grant. So as far as the executive order for the vaccination mandate for the federal dollars that supports that, which is a little over $800,000, it will be considered a grant. So that executive order will not be a direct impact to those employees or our employees who are funded under that dollar. So we found that out on Tuesday, and so we will continue to move forward with that process as we have. And then we, hopefully in November, there will be an opportunity for annexation, another annexation conversation for the board to consider. We have had Turner Public Schools has passed a resolution at their board meeting and to annex to Southern. So as Southern considers that proposal, then the next step would be it would come to the state board. So that's very exciting. We do have one election that you, as the state board, have already called for November for Mangum to join Southwest, and so it's exciting to have another school to be a part of that conversation. And that concludes my comments.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's move to item 1.04, which is discussion and a potential vote on the minutes for the September 16, 2020 regular board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hillary,
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bovee,
Yes.
Superintendent Hofmeister.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, second, let's look at 2.01, Governor's Proclamation recognizing careers in construction month for October. Mr. Ray.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see everybody. My name is Russell Ray. I'm Director of Communications and Marketing at Oklahoma CareerTech. We are working on a lot of exciting things in the area of construction. One of those things, obviously, is our collaboration with the Construction Industry Board, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that here in just a moment. And yes, Governor Kevin Stitt has declared October as Careers in Construction Month, which gives us, which acknowledges the value and importance of the construction industry. It also gives us a great opportunity to talk about the need and demand for skilled workers in the construction industry, specifically electricians, plumbers, HVAC, and roofers. So we're very excited about that. As I said, the governor has issued the following proclamation, and I'll read. Whereas Careers in Construction Month is an annual month designated to increase public awareness and appreciation of construction trade professionals and the entire construction workforce. The construction industry is one of our nation's largest industries, employing more than 7.3 million individuals in the U.S. and more than 88,000 Oklahomans. And whereas the U.S. construction industry needs 700,000 new construction professionals by 2026, and Oklahoma predicts a growth of 12%. We are pleased to honor the construction trades professional and the critical role they play in the economic development of Oklahoma. And whereas the National Center for Construction Education and Research was created by the construction industry to standardize training and enhance the industry image by promoting the hard work and dedication of our nation's craft professionals. And whereas Oklahoma CareerTech, along with its National Center's sponsor, the AGC of Oklahoma, is pleased to partner with the National Center in its Build Your Future campaign with a mission to narrow the skills gap by guiding America's youth and displaced workers into opportunities that lead to long-term rewarding careers in construction. And whereas Oklahoma's CareerTech system plays an integral role in training and education to prepare a construction trades workforce, including programs in the CareerTech Skills Centers and 58 Technology Center campuses statewide. And whereas the goal of the Build Your Future campaign is to shift the public's negative perception about careers in the construction industry and provide a path for individuals to become craft professionals and help fill construction trades skills gap. in the state of Oklahoma. Now therefore, I, Governor Kevin Stitt, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Careers in Construction Month. As I said, this created an opportunity to really talk about the need for skilled workers in these industries. On October 1st, we launched a social media campaign around Careers in Construction Month. In that campaign, we have been highlighting the many job opportunities in Oklahoma's construction industry. As of October the 19th this week, we've reached, in that social media campaign, we've reached more than 87,000 people through those social media efforts on both Facebook and Twitter, and there have been more than 8,200 impressions through those social media efforts. So far, the social media campaign has been, in my mind, very successful. We still have the rest of the month to go. We can certainly share those results with you as that campaign winds up. At this time, I'll take any questions if you have them. If not, I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all right.
Very good.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, let's move to the next item. Deborah Wartek. Did I say that right?
Close enough.
How to say it?
Wotek.
Oh, you, okay, Wartek.
Silent J, yes. Good morning, thank you guys so much for allowing me to come and speak to you guys this morning. I'm with the Construction Industries Board, state agency over the licensing of several construction trades. I really want to thank Dr. Marcy Mack for your vision in our interagency agreement and a way that we can work together to both get the youth into our industries and to grow our industries. There's a huge gap with the skills needed and the people that we need coming into these trades. And I believe through our partnership, we're going to help bridge that gap and just really help our industries here in Oklahoma. Just to talk a little bit about it, we've started getting some things from the CareerTech that we've been to start utilizing to help spread the information. We've received some brochures and flyers that have really put all the information in one document that we can get into kids and counselors and teachers' hands on why they should consider our trades, all the benefits that there is and all the job openings that there are. And as you guys know, there's huge misconceptions when it comes to talking about careers in constructions. And so like Russell spoke about just having this month as an opportunity to speak about those things has been great. Our partnership with social media as well. CareerTech has provided us with a lot of infographics that we can use and share, as well as CareerTech has shared some of our infographics and information, so just showing a true partnership, and I think getting information out has been amazing. We have recently finished a careers, electrical careers video through the CareerTech agency, and it has been a huge success. We've started sending that out to school districts as well as counselors and different programs to help educate on just the opportunities in the electrical careers. I'm beginning to work with Russell on doing our mechanical HVAC video to come out, just so that there's also that information. It's about a 10-minute video, so it's really good for kids to kind of get one, what's in the industry, the type of people that are in it, and that what the opportunities are. So that's been really exciting. So we finished one video, we've started to work on the other video. We also are getting talking points approved that we are going to use both for our people as well as schools and parents that they can use to talk to kids and students about our industries. They've done a lot of research on the job openings that are yearly placed here in Oklahoma, the salary basis, just a lot of the career information that we can really put concise on a single piece of paper to really sum up the information for our industries to help get that information out, which has been great, and I can't wait to get those out on our website as well for people. I also understand that we have a new plumbing program that's starting at one of the schools, so it just goes to show that it is working because there is a need for it now, and so we're beginning to get that program going to get more people into the industry, so I think that helps both the CareerTech and our industries getting people in and educated. So I just wanted to, I guess, come and brag and really thank you guys for partnering with us and helping us get more people into our industry. It has been a huge help, and I've seen the value of it. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
thank you for being here and giving us a background, but can you go a little deeper as to the mission and background on Construction Industries Board in the state, but also as it relates to commercial and residential construction? So is it all together? Do you separate that? Just give us a little bit of.
So depending on the industry that you're in, we do cover several different industries, so it's not just electric. We have electric, HVAC, mechanical, plumbing, we have roofers, we also have inspectors and home inspectors. So we kind of have a broad, and then each of those are under their own statute. So electrical has their own statute and law base, and they're divided up a certain way, and they have their own laws and and so they each kind of have their own guidings. Some of them do have it split between residential and commercial. So some industries you do, if you're going to work on a house, have to have one license, but if you're going to work on like the Devon Tower, you need a different license, and some don't. So it really depends on which one specifically, which is why making the videos specific to that industry and the talking points specific to that industry is really helpful, so that we're not getting those information across, because the apprentice to journeyman ratio are different for each trade. So it can be very clear as to this is the industry, this is the goal, this is what it's going. Does that make sense? But the goal, I mean, in a lot of the industries, once you get into it, and I think that's kind of our goal, is you start out as an apprentice, you can actually end up owning a business, right? And with CareerTech and with that education, it really just helps that dream come true for a lot of people. And I think if we can show them that you can start here, and then those businesses, they can work on commercial or residential or whatever they want to focus on. But that makes sense? Is there any other questions?
Are you working at all with the K-12, students with ICAP and with the team yet? I know these are some of the initiatives that we've partnered in the past.
We're definitely starting on working on those now that we have like the videos and the talking points.
Right.
Being able to provide that information has been a huge fill in that gap that we needed to be able to get that information out. We don't have enough people to be at all those meetings and all those classes, but having information that we can provide them to fill in that gap has really, really helped. So
That's great. Well, I know the videos are very important, and we have the platform that then helps send out some of those, and I know OK Career Guide has been a real big piece of that as well, so thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
I know at one time, years ago from the construction industry, we were asked at the CareerTech level, and I'm quite sure Ms. Dawson hears this as well, is Ms. McCormick, they sometime in Oklahoma, sometime in the United States, we just need workers that can read a tape measure, use a hammer, and use a hand skill saw. Do you guys still have that request from your partners, from your membership, and they just want somebody to show up on time,
Yeah.
use a hammer, and
Know what 1/8 of an inch means, yes.
read a tape measure? I mean, do you still have that request, or do you still see that need? I'm quite sure.
There's still a huge gap. In some areas, it's reducing. I know, like in the plumbing industry, we've been increasing, but there's going to be that need. More people that they are, there's more toilets, there's more plumbing, there's hospitals, all the plumbing that goes with all those gases and all those things. Those are all done by plumbers, and so those things are going to just keep being needed. And the workforce that we have now is aging out. It is a skilled trade. You can't just get somebody off the street and be able to do that. You wouldn't want somebody to be able to go into a hospital and plumb a hospital like that. And so it takes time to get that skill. And so it's a constant need of trying to pull them in now so that we have them in a few years so that they're ready to go. So, but yeah, showing up on time, being able to read a tape measure is very important. And you guys have been able to find those people, and getting them through y'all's centers have been really helpful. So it's been a great partnership. But yeah, if you know those people, you can find them a job.
Thank you for the partnership.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Next is the annual report and strategic plan
Superintendent,
update. Oh, yes.
kind of lead into the question that, her comments kind of lead into to the next question about our relationship with the skill centers. We have a great relationship with the skill centers, but in the past, we really worked towards a construction area for those potential workers that would get out of the skill center, come into the workforce, be taxpayers. And I know years ago, Dr. Mack, Robbie Sanders, and them brought a crew here from the skill center with the woodworking, with the trailer.
Yes, with the mobile
Yes.
construction trailer, yes, sir.
Yes, and then they talked about mobile welding and.
Yes.
So do we still have that relationship? I'm sure.
Yes, sir, we have with our team, that nonprofit here in Oklahoma City with Team. That was the relationship that we had started with them. That construction trailer is still there with them at their new building, where we have various classes with that as well. The mobile welding trailer, we have utilized it in a couple of different areas. One of them was with Muskogee Creek Nation in one of their transitional locations, and Green Country Technology Center utilized that. And so as that need arises, currently the conversation around the welding trailer is with our individuals no longer being at Fort Supply, and them going back to Alba, Bill Johnson Center there in Alba, is how do we potentially do, if they get to a 1G with welding, that gives them, if they can get to a 3G, of course we know that's much better, but can we do a series with that mobile welding trailer because there's not a facility? Maybe we could do that outside for some who want to get into that trade as well. And then we've also talked about doing that in one of our juvenile programs that Justin had a conversation with the Tecumseh group, and that was, we just talked yesterday about being able to move that mobile welding trailer in that way. So yes, we still utilize that as a need arises in each of those areas. Then we contract with them and find a local technology center in the area and try to build that partnership.
Because our hope and our intention would be with some type of a skill or trade, when they leave the Department of Corrections, maybe they don't see them again, hopefully.
That is correct, sir. Yes.
So that's that was the plan initially, so, and I'm sure that's working well. Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Now, let's move on to item 3, which is the annual report and strategic plan update.
Thank you, Superintendent and board members. With the business plan approval in September, as we have worked through the process, our strategic plan, and we do have a copy of the strategic plan that the board approved last year. It is a 2-year cycle for the strategic plan. The key performance indicators or KPIs that were approved in the strategic plan are the areas for which we focus on and outline in the annual report, so that we can show those numbers in the specifics. So in the annual report, that is the larger black document that you have in there, black folder, just goes through our specific numbers that we have and how we tie that to each of the pieces in the key performance indicators that are approved in the strategic plan. As our enrollment, which is no surprise to anyone of where we're at and what that looks like around our enrollments for FY21, our numbers are down. When you look at our enrollments and total enrollments where they were this time in our annual report last year, we were about 455,000, and our total enrollments now are 426,000 across the board. So in that first pie chart that you see on page 2, we have the breakdown of what each of those are, how many enrollments we had in each of those areas. And so throughout the annual report, then we break down what those numbers are and by specific areas. So business and industry services on page 3. When you see it, page 3, it looks like this in your folder. Our businesses served, that number is down. Total businesses served, 5,670. Previous year, we were close to 7,000. When we look at where we were at last year from from March to June is the indication of that's, when we were closed down. We were, for all of last year, we had either businesses that were closed or training that they were not doing, so that did directly impact our number of companies served through the technology centers. So we are already seeing that pick up a little bit. We are hopeful when we run these numbers. The first report from the technology centers is due in October, so we're working to validate the first quarter numbers, and we want to do a comparison of where that was over a 3-year time period to see what gains we're making, are there areas that we still need to concentrate on, and how do we move that forward so that we can hit those key performance factors that we have. We are still training for industry programs. Last year we did sponsor a little over 1,300 jobs through that training for industry programs. We already have some training for industry programs that have went into place for this year with new companies coming on board, so we are excited to see that pick up. As well as I mentioned before, our procurement technical assistance program, last year they did help secure more than $438 million in contracts through the work that those PTAC coordinators do across the state. So in our business and industry services, safety is still a large factor of what we do in that, where a lot of our enrollments come from, but industry-specific and adult career development are large areas as well. And when we talk about the adult career development, that's pieces that individuals may be utilizing to upskill or change careers, or maybe it's avocational, those particular things that they can focus on in adult career development. We mentioned our skill centers, and that particular area, we have been able to still serve students in that area. It is down, substantially down from where we were last year. We were a little over 1,500 last year. Our enrollments in FY20, we were about 1,500. Last year we were 893. When we are working within facilities, as they have specific areas either in isolation or in quarantine, our students that are in those specific areas or pods are not allowed to come and be in the classroom. And so that did directly impact our programs. Where we were able to, we did provide instruction or packets that we could, the individuals could utilize in their rooms. However, that hands-on piece is still very critical for what we do. And so we are working to move through that. We still had those that we were able to train and place, a 91% positive placement rate for the individuals who did transition into our communities. And our hourly wage is up. Our hourly wage is up a little over $1. So we were a little bit above $13 an hour previous year, and we're at $14.91. So that is a great opportunity for our students as they transition into our communities and the workforce. With our adult basic education, same scenario as our numbers. We do have sites that are open and still providing that service. And we were able to move to an opportunity for online testing, which we did not have that option before. And so that opened a door for us to work to try and get more individuals to obtain that certification. So that was a new avenue for us, and we were able to, hopefully, we are going to continue to work with all of our sites across the board to help engage individuals who may need the assistance in basic education programming. And our dropout recovery, which is hosted by our technology centers. It is specific to the technology centers. We do partner, these are individuals who have disengaged in the K-12 area. And we are working to bring them back into the education so that they can finish their high school diploma and GED and also obtain some skills. So it's a combination piece. And so we do have some schools during this time period who would like to add a dropout recovery program just because of some of the things that we've been through. They are seeing that disconnect, and they're seeing that they have numbers in their community that would warrant an opportunity to bring individuals back to help them get that high school diploma and the skills. So, and that was a part of the appropriations request that you approved as well. So, any questions before we move on to PK through 12?
So just a comment on that, I really appreciate that, knowing, we know that there will be consequences from the pandemic, that disengagement that occurs when your teacher is ill, your teacher's in quarantine, when students are absent, and the disruption that occurred all last year. And then we saw extraordinarily compounded this fall in the earlier months. So we know that this is going to be an effect that does happen and needs to be addressed. Thank you. The CareerTech is the location for anyone that is seeking their GED. We do field those requests and send them on to Dr. Mack. But it's a hopeful thing when we see them reaching out to do that, and to combine that with the skills training that's needed is extra important.
Are you seeing an uptick? I mean, those were some big drops. Is it better fall?
In the fall,
with
we
businesses
have,
or the enrollees in CareerTech?
yes, we have seen specifically just by the conversation with the schools and their connectivity with the businesses and opening. Many of them, they had a lot of online, and so you saw where their contact hours may have still been at a certain level, but a lot of it was online. What they're seeing now is the in-person is also picking up health area more, as well as specific industry in manufacturing and those particular pieces. So
That was going to be my next question on the
so
online.
in this first quarter, which we should end next week, we want to look at those numbers and do
Is
a
that the October
comparative.
numbers you were talking about?
And compare where our numbers are, and then, and see, okay, are we back on trend with what year? Like our interactive data that's online, we have 5 years out there, so we wanna lay in, what does FY '22 look like where we're at right now? And what year are we comparative to, and then look at that more on a quarterly basis. Usually it was always a 1-year shot, look at that where we're at, but during this time period and trying to connect, we want to be able to look at that quarterly. The schools are doing a lot more of those comparisons and utilizing the interactive data for that. We had a presentation yesterday from a superintendent who showed how they're using that data in their programs and how they move forward. So we want to try and get that more on a real-time basis to provide that to the schools, but also to see where maybe we need to provide more technical support or assistance from the state level as well.
But it is truly related to the pandemic. We saw across the board the businesses closing down, the opportunities for students to do. There's, they did not want to have anyone on site that wasn't part of their employment. So those opportunities were closed. And there were some that were able to continue even with our externship program, we saw that. And then as you can imagine, the health industry, which is a big part of the opportunities for internships, were stretched to the limit and could not do these kinds of very important roles, but not in a pandemic. And all hands were on deck for supporting communities.
On the dropout recovery, what's the time frame we measure obtaining employment after they receive the GED or because I noticed that the number of students to obtaining employment, it doesn't really look great, but I know that has to be a lot better than that, than what it's actually
So
showing.
what we currently, 6-month time period, so is when they do their follow-up, and we've had to move that up a little bit so that it aligns with our Perkins data, because they have changed that timeline as well. We used to be able from May, and then we didn't do the follow-up until January. January, February, but with our federal information and those guidelines moved up, they start collecting that now in October. And so that time period is shorter. What we would like to be able to do is add potentially, if we could get some of our partner agreements back in, we would maybe do that follow-up at a 3-year cycle and maybe even a 5-year cycle.
Yeah.
And do that. We do have a great partnership now. We did put an agreement in place with Oklahoma Employment Security just last year so that we could do some of that data with our adult basic ed. And so it worked great this year. We ran that in September and it worked very well. And so we'd like to be able to expand that for other areas, just so we can get a feel for what does that look like.
Exactly.
And where they're, and it doesn't give us personal information on anything, it just gives us an idea of, are they in the workforce employment-wise in those particular things.
And you can imagine, I think also a job that you get with a GED in a few months is not one with likely a lot of skill. And that's going to take time for training and then placement. I like the idea that you mentioned of being able to take snapshots further out.
Yeah,
See that.
that
Great
was
question.
a conversation that we're trying to figure out the best way to do that and get accurate comparative data.
And I think also entering into the military should be,
Yes.
I'm sure that's collected
Yes.
as well. But that's often what we see, people wanting that, to begin a military career, and that's great. So,
I have a question. When I look at these numbers and we're looking at pretty much less than 50% that we're actually helping and turning around during this dropout recovery, is there anything more that can be done to make sure? I mean, that's a very concerning number, that half of them are actually literally falling through the cracks and we're unable to put them and help them through those areas, whether the military, whether, just kind of those opportunities that they have.
And this measurement that you see here, and maybe we need to break it out in a 2-year, a potential 2-year measurement, because some of them may enter the program at a time period, and when we measure this at the end of the year, they may be continuing in and not be a completer yet in that dropout recovery, because it is not on a standard August to May potential time period. So, and that's the same thing that we run into, the skill centers piece. Somebody may enter the program in February, and so when we do our report out in June 30, they're still actively in there, so our percentages could be off. So that may be a part of it, but we can go back and look on the follow-up piece, dig more into that data, and actually figure out, did we not get return on that individual? Was it a not working or no response on that particular piece? So we can dig into that more to answer that question. Yes.
yes, some will also enter college, and so that's not going to be reflected either.
And that's in here already, those going into college.
If they completed that program, and then what their next step is, so.
Yeah, you have 62 that enrolled in post-secondary.
Well, post-secondary could be
a technology center
center.
and college is a higher ed institution, if we were able to receive that data. So we
So
can
when
dig
that-
into that more from those 10
So when that college
schools.
is also included in those 62 4-year college?
Post-secondary would be a technology center
Or college?
Yes, yes.
Also, people have a different path. They can also go directly into college, excuse me, through community colleges, and once they have 30 hours of credit earned, then that satisfies. If I recall, it's been a while since I've looked at this data on earning the equivalent of high school diploma. So there are multiple paths. I don't think this reflects the whole picture, so just to kind of add that to the conversation.
And we can do specific follow-up with the technology centers, these programs that they have. There are 13 of those in the technology center, so we can dig in deeper to that and ask on that follow-up, and how many, we may need to add a variable that they continue in that specific program, so that when we have that cutoff, it doesn't show that, where's everybody else? So, thank you, we'll pull that information as well. In our PK through 12 information that's on page 5 and 6, this is our programs that are specific in our middle schools and high schools. One of the pieces that breaks down this data a little bit more in the fast facts, the individual page that is in your folder that we have here, it does break that down by grade. So this year, we did add 5th grade because of the federal legislation, the Carl Perkins legislation, or what is affectionately known as Perkins 5. It allowed career and technology education to go down to the 5th grade. Until that was passed, we were only 6th grade through 12th grade. And so with that pass, if individuals want to utilize their Perkins dollars down to the 5th grade, that is available. We do have some schools with their Perkins funding primarily for career awareness and counseling. Utilize that for their 5th grade. You can see the percentages. Our largest percentage for serving our secondary enrollments is 11th grade at 43.3%. In our key performance indicators in the strategic plan, our target is to look at each of those areas and try and increase in all of those spaces. Career awareness, what that looks like. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are areas that actually are growing for us, and being able to move that forward. But our largest touch point is with the 11th and 12th graders, because that is also a piece for the technology centers. But that's a breakdown by grade level as it relates to the statewide enrollment for statewide number of students in those particular age groups, and then the touch points that we have with CareerTech. Our comprehensive programs, number to our teachers, enrollments by specific area, and then of course our CareerTech student organizations, which are integrated into our CareerTech programs. Leadership, employability skills, the opportunity for students to work on teamwork, and those particular things are vital components that the CareerTech student organizations bring to those programs.
So we'll see a real change in the numbers, and you're starting to see the effect of ICAP. That's a change in statute where we implemented individual career academic planning as part of the graduation requirement for all kids, and it starts in 6th grade formally. And that you can see even with what CareerTech and under Dr. Mack's spearheading of even the kindergarten through that elementary component that is part of OK Career Guide, and that module that helps them with the world of work, and beginning that integration into that early years, into then 5th and 6th as that begins. They then as a family begin to be a part of the their own ICAP that's individualized, that carries with them all the way, not just to high school graduation, but post-secondary. And so that work is what, we've been working on for at least 5 years. And it started with a grant that we all jointly worked on with Higher Ed, CareerTech, and Common Education, and went to secure. Only 10 states got this out of I think 44 that applied with JP Morgan Chase. And so we were able to use those millions to begin and launch this program. So those videos that you're talking about, those one-shooters on various careers, the identification of which programs in the state, whether it's community colleges, CareerTech, or higher education, university research, university programs, it all shows how it fits with, let's say, electricians, and what it takes to begin that program in different places. And it also includes electrical engineers and what industries they serve, so that kids begin seeing how these pathways can unfold in front of them. And it starts with that exploration of the world of work. So we would expect to see these numbers in 5th and 6th really growing over time because schools now are on board. We had a 3-year pilot. That is no longer a pilot. It's statewide. And it's required that everyone that is now they would be a junior this year, they are all required to have the ICAP in place. So it's not something that if you have a recent grad, they would have been required to have, but as this rolls forward, it will involve all the students. And the younger you are, the richer that program will be because you will have had half your academic career involved in that. So it should make a real difference in moving the numbers from having only less than 50% of Oklahoma students moving on into post-secondary pursuits. Think about that. Half or not. And this is solving a huge problem. When you look at and I know everybody at this table knows the statistic, but that the new jobs of the future, only 1% will require a high school diploma or less. Of all those new positions that in those jobs that are going to be created, the rest are going to have post-secondary skills. And so this is part of that pipeline, if you will. And we'll see this, and then the pandemic. So there's where momentum could potentially stall for a moment.
And is there a way to track or at this point have any numbers? As you mentioned, it's been 5 years. And I know some of those you said are now in 11th grade. Is there a way to be able to see how ICAP, just accountability and how we've been able to?
So we have research projects already with University of Oklahoma. Also, the HOPE Index is part of that study. And it is having benefits in increasing graduation rate. It's actually only been a pilot for 3 years. It's been required for 2. One of them was the pandemic. So that last year was the first year it was required. So you can see from, I think we had 150 some districts that were part of the pilot and that did they were the subject of some of the early research. And that research is also part of JP Morgan Chase's nationwide.
And so now all districts are
Yes.
required to have ICAP. Now,
Absolutely.
would all of those districts be fully funded as far as having ICAP in their schools? Are there dollars specifically meant for ICAP?
Not really specifically. That's why we asked for, and for years, we've been asking for the full funding of the school counselor corps, because that has a big component to this. And we used federal relief dollars to launch that and get it started, to then match dollars that the school districts have in their federal relief dollars to be able to pay the second half of that for a period of 3 years. So we have launched that. That's $70 million in the effort of employing they are new people into career counseling, into the school counseling, as well as the mental health component that goes with that, because they both work together. We heard Deborah mention soft skills being on time. That's social emotional learning. That is the piece that's missing. When business talks about soft skills, that is social emotional learning. And so please make sure that's really well understood that you hear that. That is about children understanding how to be responsible, how to respect others. And how you demonstrate that is you pay attention, you look someone in the eye, you show up on time, you are attentive. And so these are the kinds of soft skills that come with social emotional learning. And when children have struggled through toxic home environment, chronic abuse and neglect, child malpractice, that suffers. And it then becomes the school and the classrooms of Oklahoma to shoulder. And we can't just say, not our job. We have to do whatever it takes to meet our kids where they are, and then build that bridge so that they can move into that successful place. So that's part of removing some barriers for success for them. It's powerful what we're seeing happen with their ability then to engage. And what we're finding through Dr. Hellman's research is that they are finding hope through ICAP. It's pretty be amazing.
The other piece when we talk about our secondary component and the particular things, and you mentioned the ICAP and how that ties into it with our OK Career Guide that the board did approve that we launched in 2015. It seems so long ago. With that also is available for adults. So as adults, maybe they disengaged in education or they're in a specific area that they want to look at what options are out there. We have a component for it for adults and also a specific area for military. For those who transition out of military, how do we keep them here in our workforce in Oklahoma? And that's where on 7 and 8, some of the pieces, ICAP when it comes to the technology centers, not only covers that secondary space, but it also provides an opportunity for an outline and a path for our post-secondary individuals, which our technology centers have an opportunity to serve both. In the outline that you see here, the enrollments in this particular area have been impacted. We have, as secondary students work through that area, they did put in a lot of digital ways to connect with students and keep them engaged, but hands-on is a core component of what we do in career technology education. So through the process, many of them did alternate schedules. So certain students came on maybe Monday, Wednesday, another group came on Tuesday, Thursday, so they could address that size-wise. They expanded out their programs into various areas across their campus so that they could keep students engaged. So our numbers, we know, are directly impacted with that, but we are, again, hoping to measure what that looks like, where we're at, not only for our secondary population, but for our post-secondary population as well, when it comes to our full-time programs. And which that is what you see on page 8. That's specific to the programs that standardly run from August to May in our full-time programs for technology centers. And the last particular piece that we have is the breakdown of actuals. We did put in the business plan, there was the specific, we had added that particular piece off of a recommendation when I had an opportunity to meet with some of the board members on the business plan. We were asked to put in there what would that do to revenues and what would that look like. So we did add, in the instance that we were given the opportunity for the additional appropriation, what that would look like for FY22. And so in this annual report, we do put in our actuals. These are the actual expenditures off of the budget that was approved and broken out into the specific categories. In this particular breakdown that you see here in the annual report, I also included in your packet, we have a new format that we have been given from the state chief financial officer that all agencies will follow for their budget hearing. And so we did receive that template. And I provided you a copy of it just so you would have it. And happy to go over that with any of you in great detail if you would like. But all of the information that we have in the business plan, the information and the KPIs that are set in the strategic plan, and then the data points that we have listed in the annual report, specifically address all of the requirements that we will now have for the presentation for FY23 budget hearings. So I wanted to provide that to you. One of the pieces that we have as well that is in there is to talk about efficiencies and processes and those particular things. At the agency, we started that process a little over 2 years ago in outlining what those processes for each of the areas and those particular things, so we will be able to provide that data that we've been requested of as well. So in the breakdown of the revenue, there are expenditures in 3 different formats that you see here. The reason for those 3 different formats, those are 3 different scenarios that we are asked to provide information at the state level, so we want to just put them in here and make sure that we show the different ways and it is from all funding sources in each of the expenditure areas. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the annual report or how that ties to strategic plan, and then the one-page fast facts as well.
Very good. I do like on the strategic plan, being able to see, this doesn't show the goals and how we're doing, and on this, how we are and I mean, it does clearly show the challenges we're gonna have after the pandemic to get the numbers where we want.
And the strategic plan, it's on that 2-year piece, so our charts that we have here, we will update those and put that information in there. We are required to have approval on that every 2 years, and then we do submit it to the House and the Senate, and then to the administrative branch with our measurements. Also, our measurements that are.
Will that be this year?
It'll be next October.
Next October, okay.
And then the dashboard, the state dashboard, with the information and what was approved by the board, what is on the state dashboard is what we have been measuring as well. So we are able to provide that data as well. But yes, the charts over time, we do have those, some of those on interactive data as well.
Okay,
On the website.
thank you.
Very, very cool. Thank you for that.
Okay, and now we have a item which is also a discussion and a possible action on the ODCTE submitted proposals as a fiscal agent for the American Rescue Plan Act, as well as the Oklahoma, and through the Oklahoma established process. So would you want to go ahead and make that presentation?
Yes. Madam Chair and Board, in your packet, I have provided information on the American Rescue Plan Act information and the opportunity that anyone in the state has a chance to provide a proposal for. We have been approached by some of our partners, and in that conversation around partnering with them on specific requests for funds that would be available. The portal opened on October the 1st. And the reason that I wanted to bring this to the board to have conversation about it is the process does engage legislators, it does engage cabinet secretaries, those particular things. This process we haven't had available before either. It's not like some of our other grants that we have. The funds must be provided to the entities that are selected through the selection process by December of 2024. The funds have through December 2026 to be spent. And so that's another thing that is unique to this. It would go over multiple fiscal years. The dollar amount can vary per project. And the outline for that in the submission, there are 2 places on the portal, and the link is in there for that. You can submit an idea, which would just be specific to something for someone to consider to do. And then there is an opportunity to submit a project. And in that project, it does require justification, measurements, the dollar amount for that, and then who all would be engaged in that process. So we have been approached to be a partner with a few others in Workforce. Workforce is a part of what they do. If they are able to get funds through their proposal, they would like to invest that into some of our programs and those particular things. A couple of them have asked if we would be interested in being the fiscal agent, and then they would partner with us. One of those is specific to aerospace. It follows along the plan, the aerospace statewide plan that we've had conversation here multiple times. We were asked if that was something that we would consider to be able to do that. Middale Public Schools, Middale Technology Center, and what they're expanding with Tinker. There's some specific pieces for that, as well as what is at Metro Tech in that particular space. And talking with our partners in the Tulsa area as well, they were a part of that statewide piece. Before we put those together, some of those could be anywhere from $10 million to pieces of it to, $50 to $70 million on the equipment, because aerospace is very expensive. One of the pieces that we would make sure we be very diligent in is to make sure that we were not spending that dollar amount on things that would have a reoccurring cost, that it would be specific for one-time investment pieces, because these funds, they have a shelf life. And we want to make sure that we would not put anything in place that would require the state to have to invest to be able to move that forward. So our partners, what would they be investing in that? How would they sustain it? That would be all a part of that conversation. But before we move forward with it, we have another group, the film group, when it comes to equipment, and Corey has worked with them, that would like the workforce conversation. How do we move that forward? We'd like to focus some targeted things for classrooms, equipment for programs across the state. And so it would be different than other grants that we do. It does engage our elected officials. It engages our cabinet secretaries. You can see the breakdown of which areas and who they would be submitted to as well. Depending on the area of what it would be, we could submit in workforce. If it was something specific to our health programs, that would be in the Health and Human Services area. But I wanted to, we did not in any of the per year, all the other adjectives of the federal dollars, those 3 series, our agency did not receive any direct dollar amounts with that. Those dollar amounts went directly to the technology centers. And so we don't have any of that currently reflected in the budgets and things that you've approved. So this would be an additional area that we would need to highlight in the budget and so and break out. So I wanted to bring that to the board to make sure being a fiscal agent is if that would be acceptable or not for our agency to do that, to support some of our other partner entities before we move forward with any type of application or proposal. And just because we put in a proposal does not mean that we are selected. But it does take a lot of work to put the proposal in, because we do want to do our due diligence and show our measurements, show our outcomes, and how we will spend those dollars. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Mack, I guess some of the individual technology centers, there may be partnerships out in the various regions or communities as well that
yes.
submit. Okay.
Oh, yes.
But this would just be for the ones that want to partner on something that's a broader statewide. They need a fiscal agent, and the state entity would be the fiscal agent.
Yes, it would just be specifically for the ones that would want us to receive the dollar, and then us to do the reporting on the dollar, and then transition that to the partners and those particular things, and do the tracking of that piece.
That helps cross boundaries.
Yes, there
There's an
are
avenue for that.
multiple entities who are putting in, there is city, county, and state dollars. What they are doing, some of the areas they're putting it in, not only in the state or city proposal, but they're also going to put it in as a state proposal. And they've chosen someone in their local region that may be that fiscal agent, those particular things. We do have many entities, and we're supporting them, helping them with documentation and stuff that they need. But we are not the manager of the funds.
Okay.
We just play a support role.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, for an example, I'm more of an example guy, is say we work closely with the Department of Agriculture and Secretary Arthur on the meat processing Would the, you know, I mean, would that be an example of, there would be funds available through ARPA, then we work closely with them and someone could apply for a grant to expand their meat processing? I mean, is that the thought, or is that the goal, or?
That could be an example, if there was a specific target. I know if we haven't had a group in that particular topic because of some of the specific pieces that were put in place through what Secretary Arthur provided last time. We have had some of the classrooms, some of our programs, not only agriculture education, but family and consumer science now is doing some certification and they actually have it in their newsletter last week, along the line with the Beef Council and some of those particular things. So our managers group has met, and if they have some specific things that the teachers may need for equipment, and they may need specialized pieces, yes, that's absolutely something that we could put in. And we would identify, here are the programs that would want this particular piece. Here's the equipment, potentially it was available, or it could be set up as a grant. That this school district may want to apply for specific equipment for their agriculture education program and their family and consumer science program, and this is the certification and pieces that they're going for. So all of those different options could be something if they're, if our local groups, if that's what they bring to us is, yes, this is what we want.
Gordon Cooper Technology Center, Ms. McCormick could apply for their aviation program, but
Yes.
because they have 100% placement rate,
Yes,
so they could apply for a grant to have a more updated airplane for their students to work on.
yes, sir, like the engines, those particular things, and that piece is outlined in the statewide aerospace piece that we, our 7 A&P programs, each had components in there that they could use for upgrade. And it does come as a substantial cost, because to buy an engine, we're working on donations, but some of those it's hard to get. But yes, sir, those would be examples. They could do it at just the local technology center could do it. We've been asked if there is an opportunity for us to be the physical agent, that we would do that as a statewide potential request. But it would be different than what we have had on the budget sheet before.
So if we're working a $20 million deal with someone and they ask us to be their agent, are we responsible for the money, or are they? And what do we get paid for doing it?
Yes, we are responsible for the money that we would get from the state. As far in many of the dollars that are outlined, there is a specific percentage that can be applied to the administrative cost to be able to do that. There will be the opportunity for, we will have to do report outs on it and show all of the things in the system, just like what we do for our standard budget. That does come with that piece as well. Some of the groups that want to partner, each of them that I've talked to that have come and approached us, each have match, for lack of better words, that they are going to do from the local, so that it's not all 100% on, because that's the only way you can justify sustainability. So if you get this equipment, you got to have the building to put it in, you have the teachers to teach it, and those type of things. So that's how the conversation is.
Do we decide whether they have those capabilities before we get involved in the $20 million deal?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's extra work. So I guess my point is, so I've seen a lot of people say, hey, go ahead and start a program for us. We want you to partner with us. But then now you have overhead and you have people. Hopefully we're running an efficient system where all those people that are working right now already have a job to do. So now you're asking them to do something different, right? So you're going to either have to hire people or ask people to do something extra or different. So I was just wondering if we had that part figured out.
There is, that is one of the conversations. There is the opportunity for if you can, and as they have with this contract, they have specific people who are designated for this, and you can pay for that. with this dollar amount while you're utilizing these funds. So if it's a position that needed to manage the grant, those particular things, or a percentage of admin, those particular things, those are all allowable expenses, but we would definitely outline those in the grant to say there will be one FTE, this is the piece that they'll do. If it's for $200,000, it would be a different administrative cost than it would be if it's for $20 million. But those are all part of the conversation, because we can't just add on more work, because there is paperwork. If any have had the opportunity to work with a federal dollar, it does come with paperwork. So, but that is another reason we want, it could mean that we have to dedicate an FTE out of the funds to be able to maintain that piece, but it isn't something, once the dollars were gone, it is not something that we would maintain. It is only for, just like grants, it's only for the grant operation time period.
And that is my concern, and you touched right on what I was thinking, is, we just went over the budget recently and looked at those numbers. And does CareerTech have the bandwidth to bring something else on without having to hire more FTEs or individuals to do the oversight on it? And is it taking more than what CareerTech can actually handle?
And those are the pieces in the grants, when we look at those, that we want to be able to do all of that legwork in the front to be the ones that we've looked at now. Yes, Lisa, we went through that of what it would take if we dedicate an individual for those particular pieces. One of the components that we don't have all of the details on is what is going to be required. And those are some of the questions that we have as well, is what is going to be required of an entity who is awarded the dollar. And that's what some of these committees here are working on. What are there specific KPIs? Are there specific reporting? Will it be quarterly? Will it be yearly? What does that look like? And those are all questions that are, I know have been asked of some of the groups, and what that looks like. What we've been told on some of them is you would define, what difference is this going to make for Oklahoma's economy and those particular things. So there still are some unknowns that we have questions for as well. But before we went on into outlining in those particular pieces, if there is not an appetite for, from the board's perspective, because it comes on our budget piece, for us to even consider being a fiscal agent, we want to make sure that we're really upfront with people about that now, so we can.
I would hate to see us not be a partner
Oh, I
with
know.
the entities
And-
on education.
And it's pretty standard. I mean,
Yeah.
grants come with that exact piece in mind. And we have hundreds of millions in grants over, the period of time that we've been here. And so we know that there are individuals that step in to manage that. That's their specialty. They manage grants. And they know exactly how long they're employed. And then they go to the next grant. And that's what their specialty is. So that's very standard. All of that is covered but that's a very important point for Marcy and the team to evaluate what needs to be built into the grant application, whether or not they're going to participate or not with partnership. I'm with you. Lots of people talk about silos. Here's an example of where you break those down.
What other entities, aside from aerospace and the film industry, have approached you?
One of the other components that we had conversation around is specific to manufacturing, in the manufacturing workforce space, and what that looks like. Kind of the conversation has been specific to what we do with training for industry programs, or what we used to also call existing industry, where we have individuals who need to retool a whole sector of their current workforce, as they have tools or different things like that may be diversifying or changing out a line or something like that. We have an opportunity to help train in that for training for industry programs right now, it's just for new industry. So the conversation has been about existing industry. If they're hiring in 20 new people, and many of them now may hire individuals that don't have the skill set, can we come in? They're not a new company, but they're having to look at their workforce a little bit different. Can we go ahead and bring them on, do pre-employment training, and then you come in and do the customized training for 2 to 3 weeks, and then they can go to work? So that's another conversation. It would be specific to companies, but that'd kind of be what the model of that conversation would be. And then the other piece, and Department of Human Services, we've talked to them about, is the adult basic education. How do we engage students in that? And then how do we, is there a way that we can help the students and pay for tests, those particular things, because that is one barrier that they found when they were speaking with their customers, is the cost of the adult basic education, whether it's GED, HiSET, or TASC, that there is a cost that comes with that. So is there an opportunity through this, as we try to engage more students and bring our numbers back, that we can help to provide support for the students who take the test? It would go to the students so that they get paid for that. Those are a couple of other examples that have been mentioned.
Well, I applaud the interest for, partnering with CareerTech. I think that's a great time. And we know that this is something that each grant is very specific and has to be evaluated, but it's always a good thing when you're approached to be a partner in this kind of work. It breeds that sustainability long-term, and always interested in being able to leverage the expertise of CareerTech as a partner. Other questions?
You need a motion to approve?
Yeah, I was going to say, if I may, we, just for the record, we did receive, this was added to the agenda less than 48 hours ago. First details we're seeing are this morning. And therefore, I'm going to make a motion that we table any action on this until a later date. Okay?
Well, actually, I would not support that because this didn't have to come to the board. We thought it would be good to bring to the board for open discussion, to ask the board for your feelings and your thoughts about it, but it is time sensitive.
Well, it's on, okay.
That's why
So
it's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's on the agenda as a discussion and vote,
Yes.
possible vote. So I'm making a motion that we don't take the action on it because it's on the agenda that way. Because this is the first I've seen of it personally. I can't speak for
That's
the
right.
others. So regardless, I'm not in a position that we have enough knowledge to know how to proceed. So that's my motion, is that we table any action till a later date on this.
I would hate to see us lose those opportunities, which I think are important. We don't want to start the work and then not have the ability to move forward.
People are making submissions on grants right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's appropriate, I don't know if procedurally, when you make a motion, just from the economic development standpoint, there are lots of the communities and regions and tech centers talking about what they're submitting for the grants. I'm not sure of the
And their
timeframes,
So,
but
That's
so
why it's
this
on
was
the agenda.
already, have been submitting, why did we just?
so I just meant, I know they're meeting and they're
Correct.
deciding what to
The-
apply for, have been actually for months, and they're trying to figure out to work out the
The portal did
details.
open on October, the first time the portal opened, and the process and what we knew, what was going to be asked in each of those was open on October the 1st. So in the outline of that, it does ask you to designate, there's a couple of areas, 200 words for each one.
And in recent days, we've been approached, and that's why I felt it was important.
And
to
we had not
bring it on
had
the
the
agenda.
conversation about being a fiscal agent until many of those areas, because they were trying to determine, are we gonna do city, are we gonna do county? Do we need to look at this statewide? What does that look like? And so, we were approached about doing a statewide one. For example, the film one, originally, that conversation started with the Department of Commerce, and they were gonna be the fiscal agent, and so we were helping to do the support with that. because the request from the companies or the filmmakers was more to workforce. They thought, well, we could break that part out for CareerTech, and then that way you work directly with the training programs, and then they'll work more over here on the incentive and finding the space and where they can shoot and those type of things would be the piece that Commerce would take. So that's where the conversation has changed in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And so I did think it was important that we have the conversation with the board. We had not been asked to be a fiscal agent until people started going more through the application and, hey, if we step back and do this statewide, we may do one as city, but if we want to expand this and do statewide, do we have a state entity that could step up and do that part? So that's where we became
Do all
a part
those
of the
come back
conversation.
through the board?
They can, if you want them, if you want them to.
It's not required, but it sure could.
They sure could.
You may run into the same timeframe
Yeah, I mean,
sensitivity,
you
but
just
you
lose your
could.
flexibility, but if the board wants that, that's.
I think that the more we can bring to the board, I think the better, just for full disclosure and just to understand what's happening. But what I'm also hearing is that there's a lot of moving parts still.
Of
There's still
course.
conversations that are
Yes, the
being
nature
had.
of these grants.
And so therefore, to have this being brought to the board just, as Mr. Bovek said 48 hours ago, and as you mentioned, there's still more information that you're receiving. So we don't have the full information for the board, and for that reason, I would second Mr. Bovek's motion.
Can we still take comments? I just want to
Yes.
say she can't have the conversations if she doesn't have the support of the board or if they think there's entities. So we may be left out, so I just want to appeal to the other board members. We could be left out of the conversation if we appear to not want to support the efforts going on to improve the workforce using ARPA funds.
Jen, I get that, but I'm just trying to make sure, I mean, I walked in, I was about 3 minutes late due to traffic. I texted Mr. Hammonds, but first I saw any detail on this when I sat down, and then Marcia started talking
We're not
about
going to get detail
So-
until detail's ready.
Joy.
And
you're-
it is
you're-
highly appropriate to bring information to the board in
Hey,
compliance with the Open
you're-
Meetings Act.
Excuse me,
And this
I
is
was still
something that.
talking, Joy. I was
Excuse
still
me.
talking. I was still talking, you interrupted me. All I was saying is, I understand that
And-
what you're saying, but I don't have enough information. I don't think it's appropriate to ask us whether they need it or not. It's on the agenda, so my motion stands that way.
I think this is a very important discussions. That's why we brought it here. Thank you very much for your comment about the message this sends about partnerships with CareerTech. And there is not going to be a time where the board is going to have lots of advanced information when it's not possible. That is just unreasonable. It can't be possible if it's not available.
It wasn't
So
even
these
on
are-
the agenda until less than 48 hours ago.
Which is, anything can be put on the agenda within.
Isn't it responsible to be able to have all the information
It's
before
time
this body
sensitive and that
takes a
important.
vote?
Why was it not on the agenda before then, Joy?
It was on the agenda ahead of the time of the required posting.
So I have a couple of questions. How long is the portal open?
The dollar amount,
What's the deadline?
it is open. The portal is open. You can submit. There is no close. That all of the dollar amounts have to be committed by December of 2024. So this
So
committee,
the portal could virtually be open for the next 2 years.
Potentially, but the grants will be gone and the partnerships will be closed.
Okay, so, understood.
and the,
Secondly, my second question. So a $20 million ask that you're going to partner with someone, you're saying that you can make that decision on your own with no board approval? And you're comfortable with that?
The question was, should we bring it to the board? And I said yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah, but that
wait
was
a
a
minute, you said
discretionary.
yes to,
Bring it to the board. Yes, because the board needs to give input. And that's what we've had a very robust discussion about this and all of the detail.
understood.
and for the $20 million, that's one of the pieces as well in the
Because it's
conversation.
very likely that, from what I understand, they're not looking at $5 million deals. They're looking at $20 million.
Correct, and that's And to your point
The
exactly.
people that are gonna make these decisions aren't gonna be looking at $5 million deals. They're gonna be looking at $20 million deals, so the ones that are gonna get grants are gonna be getting $20 million, which means that this organization has the opportunity to be responsible for $20 million. Therefore, why I asked my questions earlier, and if I'm on the board and there's a $20 million risk out there, I think I should know about it. That's all I'm saying.
And we can absolutely bring the proposals. If there's anyone that is determined for us to be a fiscal agent, that's another reason I wanted to have a conversation, that if the board, if they want to do approval on that, absolutely. But if the first step in the thought process, if we can't be the fiscal agent, then it's something that they need to go back to the drawing board on their grant and start over of what that may look like. So,
So I guess another comment I'd like to make is the fact that I am somewhat concerned about that doesn't mean that I don't want to be a partner, and doesn't mean that I don't care about being a partner. But it does mean that I understand when the portal opened and how much time there's going to be for the portal, and there is some time for us to work on these things. And if you had to do a $20 million deal and it was that important for us to partner, then you should have a special meeting.
And that's what I think, that's what will have to happen. You will, and this board has had difficulty getting a quorum. And so when you think about the way you want to set that up, we'll need to be ready, or we're going to be losing these invitations to be a part of. Because you are going to have emergency, or not emergency, but a special board meeting, which is 48-hour notice, and that's it.
Is it, I don't know how we do with the motions on the table, but I'd like to see us approve that we could be the fiscal agent, but we get to approve or have input to the actual applications that you're being asked to be a part of.
And the key also is that you don't want to have the work being, because it's going to require work to consider even being a part of these grants. And you don't want to start that process without having the discussion with the board to gauge if there's interest, which is why we brought that to you today.
Which is,
Because
I
it
would
will-
like to meet with your team to learn more about it, but that's what I'm trying to do, is find the time to do that. That's why I'm asking, that's why my motion to be tabled. So we need to set a time where I can, and maybe some of my colleagues want to learn
Well,
more.
that's what the board meeting is for. It's
Well-
an open process for the board to have that discussion. We could have
Well,
another board meeting? Is that what you would like?
Well, I would like to, whatever that, if we need to make a special board meeting to discuss this, that's fine. But
Or
I'd
do you
like
have
a
more
little more
questions
time
now?
now. Well, no, and I'm a little, I'm gonna have to get on my other stuff, but I appreciate what you presented today, but I don't have the information I need, I can only speak for myself, to say yea or nay to move forward on this. I'd like to learn more. So that's all I'm saying. So if you'd like to work with me on that, we'll set up a time. And if that means another board meeting, that's fine. Or I can meet with you and your team individually. Okay? So, there you go.
When was the agenda available to the board? When was the agenda available to the board? I just want to be clear on that.
The email from Angela came out with this item on it was about 11:03 yesterday. I just checked.
Tuesday.
Day before yesterday, I'm sorry, less than 48 hours, yeah.
Okay, and so was that something that at that time you could have talked about? That would be really helpful if there are those
Well, I will
things.
say this, unlike, there was no, like in this, with the State Board of Ed, there's usually an iCloud link with a lot of attachments about what those agenda items are. There was nothing attached, there was no information about this, so I wasn't really clear what this was coming into this. And then when she started explaining it, I'm realizing, wait a minute, so, yeah, I didn't even have enough information for me personally to ask more questions Wednesday at 11 when it came in. And I don't know that I even saw
Oh, I
the
think it was
email.
on Tuesday.
Tuesday, I'm sorry, I apologize, get my days mixed up. Yeah,
It is this something that has to have action taken today? Because I think consensus is we have support of the board for the process, but it's just a little more information. So could we not take action on it today and we get more information from the liability side of it? But because we want to be a great partner, but I think also maybe maybe there's some information out there that there's questions about.
So how many days do you need? Because what will happen is they won't be starting the work to give back the information on the grant being done. I mean, these opportunities are going to be, they will come and go.
And the portal opened on October the 1st, is that what
Well,
is
yes,
that?
that's correct.
What's today, the
But
21st?
the point is, there's a partnership of different groups and entities, so it's not it's not solely about CareerTech.
I think the biggest concern, from what I'm hearing, is not that we don't want to be partners, it's being the physical responsibility.
Mhm.
And I think that's what the biggest, I think everybody here wants to partner if we didn't have that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what everybody's kind of a little bit worried about.
Well, that's how you partner. I mean, that's part of that partnership, is you're already the fiscal agent
Sure.
as the regulatory body and on many other grants. So when other groups that aren't familiar with federal reporting requirements, they are not equipped to be fiscal agents often, and that is why we at the State Department of Education are approached often as well. And there's many grants that are awarded because of those partnerships. And the integrity of the grant is reviewed based on also who is the fiscal agent, because there's confidence in a regulatory agent being that fiscal agent, as opposed to a nonprofit, small organization that has no mechanism for the rigor of the reporting requirements. So if that helps with answering.
There's an example earlier about Department of Commerce, and I'm assuming Director Kissling. They were gonna be the fiscal agent, then they rolled it over to CareerTech, so, I mean, I guess that was,
They asked, we haven't prepared the proposal, but they asked if we could do the workforce section of that for the film. And they are doing more specific to the recruitment of the films coming in, those particular things, because there is
kind of their
the law
wheelhouse.
with the incentive that's out there and everything. So making sure that specific targets and measurements of where that's at, that they align that piece specific to workforce and ask us to be their partner in that. And if there was an opportunity for us to be the fiscal agent, that particular one, when they outlined it, the dollar amount for the equipment, what was submitted, what Tava had at that time, I think was maybe about $2 million in that particular piece, because it was for it was for programs that are in the state that feed that workforce pipeline for Rivers, Stage, and what would be done in cosmetology for makeup artists and those particular things.
So Janet, what was it you were saying you wanted to see? I wanted to hear more about, reword for me what you were saying a
Well,
moment ago.
I
if you
thought
don't mind.
if the solution would be that we approve a willingness to be a fiscal agent, but then that we see
If the board has to approve it, everything, is that what you're saying?
I don't, or that it comes to the board to see and give input, or I don't know if it goes as
The
far as
application.
approval for
The
time.
application could be down the road, build in the time.
But I think
for that.
if the board has final say, final approval, however that language or wording would be, then I probably could get there. But just without me knowing more about what's happening in the process, there's a lot of money involved.
Yes, sir.
So, and to Mr. Brown's point, ultimately, we might be seen to be accountable even if we weren't. I'm willing to reword the motion, but I do want the board to have, if we do that today, I want Marcia, the board to have the final say on anything that goes on with this, assuming, and that's if even we become the agent. So what's the right way maybe to word that?
So would it be acceptable if it is allowable that we would be a fiscal agent, that we prepare the detail application from the budget sheet? Because the conversation, when they come to us, okay, we need a detailed Excel spreadsheet of what is this dollar amount, when is it going to be spent? Because we have to have it done by 2016. I mean,
2016?
20, sorry.
We're good, I like that, we're gonna go back in time.
2026. Okay, so everyone was listening to my numbers.
That's right.
Sorry.
You got my
2026,
attention.
I got the 6 right. Does that count? So in my, it has to be very detailed before we put it in there, because I would be concerned. I don't want to ask for something and we not be able to spend the money and have leftover. That's not an option. Or that we get it and we can't finish what we said we were gonna do. I think that's not what we hang our hat on right now, and we absolutely cannot hang our hat on that with this investment if we were chosen from the state. So bringing anything that would have us responsible for that dollar, bringing that back to the board for you to go through it in detail and make sure that we're not missing the boat, or it's something that you don't think we should be taking on the liability for. You guys approved the budget, and that was why we had the conversation. It would appear in that line. I think that would be very acceptable
Should we put something like ODCTE and its board as the fiscal agent?
So if we are the fiscal agent, you are the fiscal, you become responsible. That's why we want to ask.
Bring the
So-
applications to the board.
Yeah, we can bring the
that's-
applications to
And
the
that's why you
board.
actually have the detail to talk about. Because
So
there is a detail.
my
there.
request as an addition, I don't know if this needs to be a substitute motion or an amendment to your motion.
His
If you want to
motion.
get deep into the Robert's Rules of Order. uh, Would be that as you're approached by folks, you let us know.
Okay.
Because a big deal is knowing, okay?
Yeah,
If you're on the
Sure.
board of something and someone comes up to you and says, hey, we're working at $20 million, CareerTech, really?
Which is why we brought this to you.
Okay,
Well,
so-
and understanding the
and to-
liability of it as
and-
well, I mean, most importantly.
Or the opportunity.
Oh,
is
yeah. I mean,
really
there's,
important.
So I guess I could offer a substitute motion that would say,
He would- he
move
would
for
have to-
approval for the item with that it comes to a report to the board, and that as you are approached by folks, you let us know.
For approval by the
ones that
board.
we
For
would,
approval, money stuff is approved by the board.
for the fiscal agent piece, if we're
Yes.
asked to be a fiscal
Someone
agent.
approaches you
Sure.
to be a fiscal agent, we want to know who that is.
Absolutely.
Guess what, we might could help.
Oh, 100%,
So-
I would say yes. If,
So that's my motion.
okay, so would you then want to withdraw your motion? or-
Yes, I will, so I officially withdraw my motion, and then if you would, can you restate that for the board's approval? And
I don't think
everything?
you have to withdraw if there's a substitute.
Oh, is
Oh,
that how that
okay.
works then?
Just saying.
Okay, well then, I accept your substitution, if that's what I need to say, but I'm good with the way you worded that. And Janet, are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
All right, is there a second?
Is the second good with that?
Yes. What I want to make sure that as you're writing it in the motion is that that it's not just, hey, by the way, such and such entity is wanting to partner, but this is what that looks like. What you just
The detail of the
information,
opportunity.
exactly. And more information on that, so that way we can go ahead and proceed with.
As soon as that's available. I think that's the disconnect right now. The ask for partnership is happening and being brought to you. The detail hasn't gotten started yet because it's not going to get started until, it's a lot of work. So it's not going to get started until there's an agreement that, yes, we're interested in these kinds of partnerships. And then that detail comes to you.
But making sure that this body receives that information
Yes.
as it comes
Yes,
to
which is
the
why it
board.
was on the agenda today, because it's been approached. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Bobek,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert,
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Hillary,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Superintendent Hofmeister.
Yes. All right, thank you, that motion carries. And with that, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right,
That's Stella.
we are adjourned.